Hello friends, welcome to another Draw With Me. This is another Procreate edition. This is a far more updated version of how I draw in Procreate because it's changed a lot since last time. Today we're going to be making a little notepad, so I'm opening up a new document here. It's 4.25 inches by 5.5 inches, 300 DPI, CMYK, so it's going to be all ready to go to print straight from my iPad. I'm so happy that Procreate 5 has CMYK compatibility now. It's a lifesaver. Here I'm adding just like an extra 1/4 of an inch, or like, I guess kind of an 1/8 of an inch on each side for bleed, but it turns out that that's unnecessary to use with my printer, so just ignore that. I really could have just kept it at 4.25 by 5.5. But here I'm going in and I'm starting to sketch. I'm using the technical pencil to sketch. I usually always sketch with the technical pencil in red on a bottom layer. I actually scrap this sketch later, but I just wanted to show this to you regardless. I pretty much switch between like 5 brushes in Procreate, like 5 or 6 brushes. They're listed here. So 3 of them are Procreate standards. They come with Procreate, and then the 3 other ones I have downloaded. I will have links to all of the brush packs and everything that I love down below. Max, oh, I forget his last name, but there is an artist named Max, and he does the most incredible Procreate brushes. He just released a watercolor pack that is incredible. So if you use Procreate a lot, but you want kind of more of like a traditional sort of feel to your work, like Max's brushes are amazing for getting that traditional feel into your digital work. So like I said, I do end up scratching this or scrapping this sketch later because I sketched, okay, so I'm making notebooks and notepads for my shop update. And this was originally a notebook design, but I realized also they are doing, of course, today of all days, they are doing so much construction around like my building. So if you hear things, I'm sorry. But this was originally a design that I had planned out for a notebook. And then I realized after looking at it that it would play a lot better on like a notepad. So that's what I'm designing it for. So I did a new sketch of that similar sketch that I had previously done, but then this one kind of lacked, there was something about this one I didn't like. I don't know if there was kind of a lack of movement. There was a lack of like, sort of loosey-goosiness. That's the only way I can think of saying it. There was a lack of loosey-goosiness in this sketch that was present in the other one. And when I realized that, I was like, oh, you know what I can do that would be a lot easier as opposed to just having to go through this pain, is to just go to the other file and get the sketch. But I don't realize that for a moment because I keep just trying to work this one. So I have my little gnome person. They've kind of become like the new sort of mascot of my shop, I suppose. I've been doing a little bit of rebranding lately, and I just want to draw this character on everything. They're so fun to draw. So I drew them having a little fika with their coffee cups, and because fika is amazing, and all I want to do is have fika and draw fika, and I just want an excuse to eat sweet things and drink tea all day. Don't we all? Don't we all? And then I'm going around and drawing this little border that I kind of mess around with. This is the point here where I realize that, you know what? I'm gonna go back to my other file and get the sketch that I actually like. So I go back into my Procreate library, and I click on the notebook file where I was drawing other notebook designs. Oh, look, here's a sneak peek at another notebook. This was actually a design that I had hand painted, and now I'm getting it printed. So I go to the layer with the sketch, I hit copy, and then I just go back to my current file and I just hit paste. And then I, resize it, reorient it, erase the parts that I don't like, so that way I can have the one that I do. Now I'm going in and just adding some, last couple details. Like the steam to the tea and things and the border. Just sort of finishing up the sketch. So doing the line art will be that much easier. So for line art, I also use the technical pencil. I've been really into doing line art with like a dark blue color lately, so that's what I'm doing. I'm just going in with a dark blue technical pencil, and the reason why I sketch so cleanly is so that it makes doing line art so much easier. Also on the sketch layer, I can resize things, reshape things, warp them to be however I want. Procreate doesn't have like the most sophisticated resizing technology. It's pretty good, but just because I'm a perfectionist, I can see how it kind of loses a little bit of resolution. So I like to mess around with my sketch, resize that, and then when I go in with my line art, that way I have to do minimal resizing or adjusting. So I can just go in and follow the little lines and just have a great time. I really like doing line art. It's incredibly satisfying because I'm basically just tracing my own stuff. I don't know. I think line art might be my favorite part of the process. Also for line art, I usually tend to go, I've been really into using the technical pencil lately, but sometimes I'll also use the narinder pencil if I want, a line that maybe doesn't quite have so much like texture to it but the thing I like about the narinder pencil is that it's between like a monoline brush, which is just, flat and totally opaque, and a technical pencil brush, or even the 6B pencil, which is very textury, and the narinder pencil lies right in between that. So if I want really clean lines, but I'm not into using a monoline or technical pen brush, I will use the narinder pencil as a really nice happy medium. I was trying to do something different with this particular mug. I was like, do I want to do a different kind of handle? And then I decided that no, I just want to go with the simple, normal handle. I also really like drawing, tea steam like this. I feel like I've been experimenting quite a bit with my style lately, and I feel like I've really come into something that feels really good and very me and kind of combines all the things that I find appealing in, other people's work. And I feel like I've been able to take those elements and incorporate them into my own style, and I've just been feeling really like artistically and creatively confident lately, which is a really nice feeling because I feel like I spent the majority of like the last half of last year really struggling. So it feels nice to come into my own. Hair is definitely my favorite thing to draw. It's just so fun. I just love drawing all the little lines and individual locks. Also, you'll see later, I actually found out in coloring this piece a new way to color hair that I love. So hair is definitely my favorite thing to draw right now. Also, this chair is essentially just like the ones that I have in my dining room. You gotta draw from what you know, folks. The reason I added a little bit of extra illustration on the bottom was because when I initially made this drawing, I forgot to account for bleed, and then I was like, oh, wait, if I need to account for bleed for my printer, then I need to make sure to draw a little extra at the border. This was unnecessary for me to do, but it's good practice if you're gonna send products off to print to draw like an extra 1/8 inch of bleed around your final piece. So again, it depends on whether or not I'm going to be bothered by like the tiny de-resing that occurs when you kind of like warp and reshape things. The border obviously is very simple, so I wasn't too pressed about it. I just went in and did some warping, distorting, and things to get it to kind of look roughly like it was evenly spaced, because why use math and grids and things when you can just guesstimate, as I want to do. Also, a lot of the time I forget to name my layers, but I find that my life becomes so much easier if I just take the extra 10 seconds and name all my dang layers. But that's our line art. Ooh, she looks so cute. They look so good. But now, before we get into coloring, I wanted to say thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. I've loved and used Skillshare for a while now. They've got loads of incredible classes on pretty much anything you could ever want to learn, from like personal finance to drawing to Procreate to embroidery. Lately I've been going through Elizabeth Olwyn's classes on pattern making in Illustrator, which has been wonderful and so enlightening. The classes are broken up into short, manageable little sections, so it's easy to follow along with the instructor, and you can take the class at your own pace. Skillshare is also pretty affordable, with an annual subscription costing less than $10 a month. Also, it's the new year. There's no better time to learn new things. Click the link in the description to get 2 free months of Skillshare Premium membership and explore your creativity. So, when it comes to coloring, I like to use the Softy brush, which is a brush that I downloaded, and I just basically use that on a layer underneath my line art layer and just fill in all my flats. Also, hi Sophie. Sophie, I love her so much. Even when she gets in the way, I just don't mind. Oh, she's so cute. She's so cute. She's just gonna sit next to me for a bit, so her little brown chunky body is going to be in frame for a spell. But basically I just go in with all the sections and just layer in the flats. Usually I'll group like all the clothes in one layer. I will group maybe the hair in another layer, the skin in another layer. So I break pretty much every individual color or like group of items, I suppose, into different layers, because then it makes like shading and adding detail way easier later on. So here I'm doing the color of what the shirt would be like underneath the, steam from the mug. And I realized that drawing the stripes on the line art layer made it really hard to, it would make it really hard to, like, if I wanted to maybe change the color of the stripes, it also made it hard to change the line art of the steam, because I was like, do I want to maybe make the line art on the steam white to add that effect to it? But I decided that I didn't like that. So I just hit undo a bunch of times, and then I went in and erased all the blue lines on the shirt from the line art layer, so I could go back and add them in later on the color layer. I find that when it comes to things like patterns or details like that, they work a lot better if I include them on a layer, on the color layer, as opposed to the line art layer, because then it seems, I don't know, for me it feels like it's more a part of the thing. Also, I wanted to have Sophie next to me for as long as I could, but then she started cleaning herself on top of the iPad. She started like grooming her legs, and so I'm so sorry, but I had to take her away. She got many treats after this video, don't worry. I do nothing but spoil that cat with love and pets. Though, oh my gosh, before filming this video, I was scouring, or before recording this audio, I was scouring my apartment for one AA battery for my microphone because I couldn't find one. So I was looking everywhere that I possibly could, and it wasn't in our little miscellaneous electronics drawer, so I kind of shut it and the drawer underneath it, and then I heard a bunch of like rattling in the drawer, like in our kind of like linen drawer, and I was like, what is that? And I was like, did something fall down? And then I opened it up and Sophie was in there, and I shut her in, and I felt so bad because she likes to use our linen drawer as like a little nap spot. But I didn't think she was in there, and so I shut the door on her, and she was so scared, and her tail was all poofy, and I felt so bad. And so now I'm worried that she's mad at me, so I'm gonna make sure to just like emphasize how much I love her later. Like I said, okay, so this is going back to what I was talking about earlier with the whole like the details read better on garments and objects when there's no line delineating those details from the thing that it's a part of, which is why I got rid of the line art surrounding the like sort of ringed cuffs and collar, because it looks better with just the white as opposed to the blue separating it. This is one of my favorite tools in Procreate, is the ability to just like color drop stuff where you can I do this a lot where I just take colors if I'm not satisfied with something and I'll just drop it on. I also love using the like hue and color balance tools that if a color is almost where I want it, but it's not quite there, I'll use those tools to just mildly adjust it without having to redo the whole ding-dang thing. So again, going in, erasing, what is that extra line on the side there? Oh, that's part of the border. I just totally forgot what I had drawn earlier. So I erased the line around the lace, just, you know, to make it look more delicate and lace-like, and now I'm going in and drawing all the details. This is very simple lace. There are so many tutorials online for drawing beautiful, delicate lace patterns. This is not one of them. This is like simple, lazy man's lace doily. So now I'm starting to go in with the details. For skin details, I like to use the gouache brush, which comes with Procreate, and I will go usually a little bit redder and more saturated than whatever my skin tone is. And I will use the gouache brush to add in my blush. I also like to add in these details on a clipping mask above the skin layer, which is why I do the skin on its own layer, because it makes adding these details so much easier. So I add the layer on top of the skin layer, set it to clipping mask, and then everything that I draw on that clipping mask layer gets confined to the skin layer. I learned about the magic of clipping masks, like, I want to say last year, because for some reason they always confused me, and then I used them in Procreate and then it suddenly clicked. So now I love clipping masks and I use them all the time. Sometimes when you use clipping masks though, just because it only adheres to the, colored in pixels on the layer below, I will realize that I have gaps in my coloring where the clipping mask is not showing up where I want it to. So this is me going in and essentially filling in all the tiny little bits, like tiny little white specks usually around the edges where the color is missing. And since I was doing that on the skin layer, I just went ahead and did that on all the other layers of my flats. Again, not necessarily making sure that everything is super even, or, you know, I guess like, I could essentially just use like a monoline brush, but I just really like drawing with the softier, like more of a pencil-like brush. It's just more fun for me. It's maybe not logically sound, but I like it, so that's what I do. So now I'm going in and starting to add the details in the hair. When it comes to details and kind of like my second layer of coloring, I use the Watercolor Flow Round Brush by Max. This basically just adds a really wonderful texture to things, and I'll go in and I will first use the color of the thing that I drew, and then I'll mess around and basically just use shades that are near the thing to kind of, because the way that this brush lays on top of itself and the way that it acts is kind of really beautiful and magical. And so I just kind of use a bunch of colors near the color that I used for the flat with the watercolor brush on top of that flat color to create a lot of interesting texture and light, and it just looks really cool, and I really like it. Also, as I was talking about earlier, I found that I really like drawing within each individual lock of hair. For some reason, this was the first time that I had tried this particular coloring technique, using the watercolor brush to really define the flow and light of each lock of hair, and I love how it turned out. So now this is how I'm definitely going to be coloring hair from now on. Again, the difference is subtle, but it really truly pays off and creates something kind of magical and beautiful and lends a depth that I think the flat colors by themselves otherwise just don't have. This watercolor brush is so amazing because as you layer either the same or different colors on top of each other, the way that they interact is kind of really incredible and magical. Very similar to how like traditional watercolor works, or the traditional medium. And Max is just like a Procreate brush wizard, I guess, but I would highly recommend this pack. He also has a gouache pack, a painter's pack, and a bunch of other packs, but would highly recommend. I'm also using the watercolor brush to add just a little bit of nuanced shading around the elbows. Like, this much detail isn't really necessary because this is going to be printed at such a small scale, but honestly, like, or it may or may not be necessary, but I think it really comes through and shows up in the final product. So, and also this is just really fun for me and makes the drawing really come alive in my eyes. So I'm always, I recently discovered this sort of coloring workflow, and I was very excited by it because I love it, and it just looks, oh, it just looks so cool. So now I'm going in on the color layer with the technical pencil and adding in the stripes. If I'm adding details on things, I like to use the technical pencil because it matches the line art and it just keeps with the whole very sort of clean yet textured look that I love. So I just went in and added the stripes using the technical pencil. And now I'm coloring in the table. So I tend to only use the clipping mask when it comes to the blush on the arms. With everything else, I usually just tend to lock the layer's pixels and just draw on the layer, because the watercolor brush needs to react with the color that I've already laid down, and if I put it on its own layer or even on a clipping mask layer, it won't act the same. So I just draw straight on the layer, but I lock the pixels, which makes my life a lot easier so that things don't get all muddled. You can see here how putting on the lighter color on top of the darker color creates that really cool sort of, I don't know, it just looks really cool. I'm trying to sound like I know what I'm talking about, but I really don't. I just do it because it looks cool and it's fun. And then I went in and added my little sparkles because, I don't know, anything I make would not be complete without some sparkles for a good measure. And now I'm just finishing up my little last details. I'm going in and, resizing the border, making sure that everything looks good, making sure that I like the spacing, and fixing the corners as well on the border because they were just a little too wonky for my liking. And that's the finished piece. That's my finished little 2B notepad. I'm so happy with how it turned out. I think it looks so cute and I can't wait to get it printed and to use it. Oh, this was so fun. I hope that you enjoyed this insight into how I use Procreate. Maybe you can incorporate some of the tools and tips and tricks and things into your own workflow. Thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. And I will talk to y'all so soon. I love you so much. Stay brilliant. Bye!